Hello, everybody. Welcome to School of Authority. My name is Todd Wall, and we believe here that authority is trust in motion, and trust is what makes people move. The thing we need to talk about today, though, is the problem is my wife calls this all the time. She calls it mansplaining. I'll be driving in the car and I'll go on and on and on and on and on about an issue, and she's just nodding and she's nodding. You know what? She probably got it the first time. But that issue of feeling like we're over explaining, that's a real issue that we can conquer and bring authority to the matter. Let's jump into it. You want to do first? What do you want to do second? I haven't been this excited since today's social media world with influencers. Oh, I already know how to do this, don't I? And the coach just nods. Welcome, everybody. Let's jump right into this situation because I've been in with my wife over and over again like I said, when we're just driving in the car and we'll talk on an issue and I'll just go on and on and on and on and on. This isn't an issue with just me and my wife. This is you with your team. This is that tendency where we feel like I've just got to keep explaining this thing because for some reason, people just aren't getting it. And so this is a real problem that really actually jeopardizes and undercuts our authority as communicators. And so let me bring on Dave Stone. Dave, with Team Care, and as you coach through these with companies with your team, this is a common issue with leaders, or actually with managers who aren't fully leading yet. Maybe it's a manager who wants to become a leader, but they're just in this wheel of they're more words than action. Right. Where have you really seen this really play out? This problem of there's just more words than action.
Yeah, all the time. You see this in corporate life, again, as you said, specifically with managers and people in teams. But here's what I think: over explaining is not arrogance. It's anxiety that's trying to regain safety. So it's really kind of a cry to help. That's what's happening. Is the over explaining is I'm uncertain really about what I'm doing, and so I'm just gonna fake it till I make it, like we used to say.
That is such a great picture. Really, it's an anxiety that's causing us to explain because we don't feel like something hasn't landed. So talk to me more about this situation. What's leading to that feeling of unsafety, or lack of safety? What's leading to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things. Kind of a framework that I kind of run through is number one. There's a fear of being misunderstood. Like when people don't feel secure, they start adding words. Have you ever noticed that? Again, your situation with your wife is exactly true. She can always tell that I'm lying when I start making up stuff, and it's kind of like in sales, they say just here's the price and stop talking,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
so we tend to almost talk ourselves out of things, and it really is a fear of being misunderstood. Over explaining is an attempt to control perception. That person, whatever they are, it usually starts when I have in the past been misinterpreted, and so sometimes in work settings, maybe I've been corrected publicly, and it hasn't been done in the proper way,
So I
and
really
you've kind
like
of been made
I
a,
really like what you're saying here. It's a fear issue at its core,
yeah,
more than a tactical. My message is not landing. What's causing me to repeat myself is ultimately the opposing force is my fear of people not hearing me.
Yeah, it's uncertainty. Anytime, what do people think about, me? And we're all up in our head. I mean, even just like right now, we're having this conversation, and it's like, I wonder what Todd's thinking about me, you know, and I wonder if I feel like I come across as somebody who knows what they're talking about. And so it's that fear. And the second thing I think is there's a loss of trust in the room. That's what we're afraid of. We don't want to lose the
Mm,
room. We talked about that in sports, right? Oh, he's lost the locker room, right? Well,
yeah.
what does that mean? His authority's gone. Maybe they've heard things are going on, sideways, and they're like, when trust drops, explanation increases. There's always more and more explanations when, oh, I feel like I'm losing the room here and I'm losing trust. So therefore, I'm going to over explain that much more.
How much of this fear is just imaginary? How much of this fear do you
Oh,
think of us over explaining because we're worried about how that person's going to interpret us? We're worried about how the room is going to interpret us. How much of this is just a phantom dragon that we're fighting?
Oh, I think a lot of times it is. I mean, it's very rarely that you see these dynamics are actually the public humiliation or whatever it is. A lot of it is we're just too much up in our own head about things. It's this relational instability, and sometimes it's actually the relational instability is because of my fear of my own self, and I don't understand what's going on, and therefore we put extra stuff on top of extra weight and extra power behind the relationship that really shouldn't even be there.
I like that. So we're giving them more authority, and in that process, we're robbing our own authority. We're
Yeah,
taking our
absolutely.
authority and we're handing it over to someone else.
Absolutely. Why? Because I'm insecure. Because I'm afraid that I'm going to lose the authority.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm going to clamp down that much more, and I'm going to over explain, and I'm going to say, I know what I'm talking about here, you know? And we
Okay.
just
So
over
let's
explain.
let's view this as that's an attack. That's a voice that's coming into our head that says they're not listening to you. They don't care about you. They whatever that negative voice is in your mind that's causing you to hand that authority over. Let's create a counterattack. What would be a
Hmm.
counterattack against that fear of I'm not good enough? How can we fight back on that?
Well, I think part of it is you've got to think about where you're from. Where do you come from? What is your source? What is your primary? Why are you here? You didn't just show up here. And so, like in a corporate environment, you got hired by this company probably because they thought that person knows what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. And so we kind of have to look inside a little bit and sometimes and say, this is really about me and about how I perceive myself, not about what other people think about me. And so the problem is and with team care, and what we often have is we have this isolation anxiety, so we're afraid that what people think about us. We
Mm-hmm.
over explain, and then we stop talking at all. And so then now we're isolated and we're out of community and all that kind of stuff. So it's just the cycle. But I think it starts with the
Knowing who you are.
internal kind of, who am I? Who
Yeah.
am I? And why am I the best person to do this?
I love that element of it because if I know who I am, I'm not going to over explain. I'm going to speak and I'm going to let it sit there. But also for my team members, as you deal with helping that team, as you give that team care, we all have those team members that like I would really love their opinion, but they won't speak up. You really
Right.
said something valuable there about that may be an anxiety as well that's caused them to shut down. There is an opposite to the over explaining, and it's the not speaking up at all.
Yeah, yeah. I think, and sometimes it's kind of like in a marriage, right? We bring all of this stuff, we bring two lives in together to the one thing, and I always think it's funny. We always laugh and go, wow, I don't know how that, take two people that are a total mess and put them together to live in close proximity and how that's not going to work out, right? But it's the same thing in workplace.
Mm-hmm.
People bring their stuff from home, from their life, they bring it to their workplace, their environment. And so it may not actually, the issue probably, most likely, is not actually in the workplace. It might have been brought there, from their everyday life. And so those
Yeah.
insecurities that they're bringing with them. And so how do we just look at it and say it plainly? This is what's going on, and what is the situation? So sometimes it maybe takes time to just slow down and say, okay, what really is the issue here that we're arguing about, or that we're over explaining? Why do I have this tendency to over explain about this certain thing? And we look back, and maybe it is a previous work environment.
Yeah.
If you've been forced out of a job or something, and you're afraid of when's the other shoe going to drop, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that causes some of that. So it could be some of the history, it could be outside of the workplace, and then obviously it could be sometimes inside the workplace too. But rarely I've seen that that's the case.
Dave, absolutely love this. Stick with me. I'm going to jump to a commercial break really quickly, and then we are going to come back and let's get deeper into this issue, because I really feel like we have just scratched the surface. Hang on one
That's
second.
good.
All right, I love the element that Dave just brought out about this. That, yeah, there's me over explaining, but there's also the equal opposite of people not speaking. And ultimately, it's the same issue. So if we can really know who we are and how valuable we are, I was hired for a reason. I was chosen for a reason. What if that's the belief that you need to walk forward with? I was brought here for a reason. And if you believe that, then what would you need and want to do going forward? Try that on for me. All right, follow, subscribe if you're only watching this one segment, but stick with us after and click over to the part 2 of this, or even stick with the podcast and into segment 2. I can't wait to go deeper with this with Dave. All right, we'll be right back. You want to do first? What do you want to do second? I haven't been this excited since today's social media world with influencers. Oh, I already know how to do this, don't I? And the coach just nods. Hello, everybody. My name is Todd Wall. Welcome to School of Authority, where we believe that authority is trust in motion, and trust is what makes people move. Today, this is our second part and our second segment in talking about why do we over-explain our point? What is it that within us that triggers us needing to, as my wife says, mansplain, as it causes us to explain over and over and over? Guess what? They probably heard it the first time. Probably the problem is within you. That's why we need to do this together. Let's stick around, and here we go. You want to do first? What do you want to do second? I haven't been this excited since today's social media world with influencers. Oh, I already know how to do this, don't I? And the coach just nods. I love this topic because my wife gets on to me all the time just driving in the car. So it's a natural tendency within us. And if you saw our first segment with Dave Stone, it comes down to the initial part of it is there's a fear within me, a fear that I'm not being heard, a fear of what do they think of me, a fear of is this not landing, therefore I just keep trying to land it. But in reality, it's like that plane that's trying to land going boom, 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 boom. If you'll just hit the brakes, the plane will actually stop and land. But that's the reality, but there's a fear within us that causes us to want to just keep this thing going because what do they actually think about us? That is a scary thought. And so let me bring my friend Dave Stone back in again, and let's go deeper in with this. Dave, I love the first element of that we talked about with this, that it's really actually something in us. So this idea of mansplaining or over-explaining, Where do you see this play out in these corporate environments that you go into with team care?
I think oftentimes it comes in a moment. It's not just a theory, but it's a moment. And so here's what usually happens. People come in and they're all up in their own stuff, and they get upset about whatever it is. They've brought it from home, or they brought it on the drive here. They had an accident on the way or whatever, and then they bring it in there. And again, a lot of it is just that anxiety, and we're all up in our own stuff about, gosh, I don't know what to think about myself. And
Yeah.
so therefore I'm going to over explain, or even when it goes negative, like attack, or just even just hold off and just isolate yourself.
So let's go into the hallway scenario where you're the
Yeah.
manager trying to be a leader. You run across that key team member, whether you need to get a point across to him, maybe that he wasn't performing well, whatever the point is you're trying to make. But it's that you're crossing in the hallway and you need to say something to them, and you get them pinned, but their face is blank. So you say it, and it's just it's like you said, they probably carried something into work that day,
Yeah.
or even you carried something into work that day. And so,
Right.
because you can tell when a message lands, but they've got that blank look on their face. So,
Yeah.
do you recognize that? Have you heard
I do.
managers talk about that where they've got a
Yep.
point to make, but were the lights on? I mean, were the
Yeah.
ears turned on? Could they actually hear what was actually going on? Have you seen that situation before?
Yeah, I remember. I don't know if it's anecdotal or if it's real, but John Wooden asked Bill, oh shoot, but he just passed. What is it? Do you not understand, or you don't? What is it? Ignorance or apathy? And he goes, Coach, I don't know, and I don't care. You know, it's one of those things where you say, I don't know. Here's what happens a lot of times when we're doing rounds, or we're coaching people or whatever. What's really going on? You know, and they'll say, "Oh no, I'm fine," or "How you doing?" I'm fine. Oh, okay. Well, that yeah, it sure doesn't look like that. So what's really going on? What is really the situation?
I
And
love
so
that.
get down to the brass tacks, so especially when there's this blank look. They're obviously thinking, right? You ever notice that when you're talking to somebody and their eyes are in the back of their head? What are they doing? They're in another place, man. They're thinking
Yeah.
about something else. And so for us to be able to be successful and move forward and get our point across, sometimes we've got to just
Check in.
totally redo everything. Yeah, do a check in and
So
say, okay, what's going on here? And then how can we together walk through this and how it'll land?
I love the value of this. It's really reading the room, reading that person that's in front of you. If you see the blank face, you can't be a bull. It doesn't. Being a bulldozer or a machine gun is not going to get the point across. You're not going to be able to cram that thing in those ears. So I love
Yep.
the element, the sensitivity to the situation. Of hey, before I go further on this, how do you want to walk me through how I would want to check in? So it's before we go further. What would the next question be?
I mean, for me, as I do rounds and stuff as a corporate care coach and chaplain, a lot of times it is, um, let them know that I know that what's really going on, and that I'm not a corporate shill. I'm not trying to, keep up on them or whatever that kind of thing is, but I'm just honestly saying, listen, I'm here because this company appreciates you very much, and they chose you to be an amazing part of this company. And so when you're not on your best, when you're not best, whatever has happens, they know that you bring your stuff to work with you. right?
Yeah.
And so if that stuff is getting in the way of this, how can we walk through this? So
So,
some of it is just being transparent and authentic with them to say, hey, I know that it's probably not just okay.
you know,
And so
I
let's just talk about it. Is it
it's
okay to talk about not being okay?
I
And
love
it
that. So,
is.
so you've been able to find a connection as a third party and just
Right.
really having that authentic human to human connection. And that kind of jars, it sounds like that jars them a little bit. It lowers their guard and opens their
Yep.
ears. Talk to me about the leader or manager. So many, I think it's a false belief that I have to create a strong barrier between me and my team.
Right.
What can give them permission as a belief that it's okay for them to connect human to human with their team?
Yeah, I remember when we were in grad school together, there was a professor that said a leader cannot be friends with team members. It just isn't going to work. And I pushed back against that, and I caught some arrows about that. But because I don't believe that that's the case, I believe that when a leader is transparent and authentic and vulnerable, you don't have to tell them all of the sausages, how the sausage is made, but you can at least say, "Hey, you know what? For example, I know what it's like to have been dismissed, from a church, and so I'm able to minister to them in a way and care for them in a way that it just lets them know, hey, by the way, I'm not better than you. I've been through this too, and I understand what we're going through. And so I think it's better for our leaders to actually show some care and some vulnerability sometimes.
So
Not
really,
not
what?
so much that you're going to let them run all over you, but I
Yeah,
think sometimes just being human is a blessing for the whole group.
I think so too. So what you're saying is there's a distinction between being human and letting them in on all the private stuff.
Absolutely.
Being human isn't going to show the
Yeah,
secrets.
that's right. That's right. What is it they say? Your faith is not it's not it's is it private or personal? Those two, two type things, and you may be
Mm-hmm.
able to correct me on that. But basically, um, we don't need to know all of the conversations that have gone on at home.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say there's a marriage that's having, struggle or
Yeah.
whatever, or we've had, we lost a child, or whatever it might be. We don't need to know all of those gory details in the 9 to 5, but we do realize that we need to let them know that it's okay to continue to grieve. It's okay to continue to, let's give them permission. For example, I had a team member just the other day. I recommended, hey, I would trust these people with my own life and my own marriage. I think you need to go and talk to them. And this guy came back to me, a couple months later, and he goes, hey, by the way, that was the best money I think we've ever spent in our life, and it changed us. And so if we can um, let if we can let our guard down, that lets other people let their guard down, and then I think it's a whole lot better for the whole team. We don't need to get in other people's business,
Yeah.
but we need to care enough to know they probably have business. Does that make
An,
sense?
an authentic, just a quick check in that's just an authentic
Yeah.
expression of caring.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Just like, and don't accept the lies, or don't accept the whatever they're saying. I mean, that's something in coaching, right? I'm not going to accept what my client says to me because it's probably just a bunch of garbage, right? And so, I mean, when I walk through these companies and these teams, and I'm like, "How you doing?" and they're like, "Man, it is awesome." I go, "You're full of it." So I'm like, "What's really going on?" And so
So
I think that's part of it.
I love that, Dave. Thank you so much for today. This is so valuable. We talked about there's an initial fear that we have to deal with as a person, but then a check-in to get past that initial layer, so they lower their guard, so that you don't have to feel like you need a machine gun that message in. So,
Yeah.
so Dave, thank you so much for the time. All right, everybody. So I love the switch from just, the idea that I need a machine gun this information, but if I just give a quick, authentic check-in, I don't have to share the company secrets. I don't have to get all deep into the gory details and go knee deep in their grief or their difficult situation. What if people just need to know that you care? As a leader, what if they're not looking for the general on top of the hill who's yelling at everybody? Guess what? They're not. They're looking for people to follow. And people follow people they trust. So when they trust you, it's because you've shown that you care about them. So when you have that message and you run them in the hallway and you have that message and you start to give it off and you see it's a blank slate, how about a quick check-in? Hey, how's the day been? How's family life? And then go back to the message and see what they remembered, or ask them a question that follows up on it. But you need to check in and get past that guard. Get past life is great. Or just get some way to get past the shield so the ears will actually turn on. I love this. Try that out for me and see how that works. And follow, subscribe. We will see you next time. Here we go. You want to do first? What do you want to do second? I haven't been this excited since today's social media world with influencers. Oh, I already know how to do this, don't I? And the coach just nods.